Let's talk about the true essence of the so-called black race. Look at these beautiful so-called black women on this screen. I'm not trying to gas up my people, but I am because we are beautiful and we come in different shapes, sizes, hues of brown, different hair textures. We can change our hair to different styles. We're versatile. We're natural if we want to be, not natural and create our own ways. We are innovative. And I feel like we don't get enough reverence as to how wonderful we are, especially uh, the so-called black woman. The term black is a label of containment, but the essence of the people it's applied to is infinite, original, and cosmic. The first humans on Earth were carbon-based, copper-rich, and golden-blooded, born of this planet and aligned with the original frequency of source. Melanin is not just pigment, it is a conscious technology that stores light, translates sun codes into DNA activation, communicates with the unseen, and resists electromagnetic toxicity. So this is why they they spray the chemtrails and stuff in the air. This is why. And this is why they be try to block the sun, because the sun and those solar flares that is giving off, which is making it seem like it's hotter, which is really not hotter. It's just it's the rays are stronger. It's not really hotter. It's just the rays are a lot more strong than they were. But the uh things that they're doing is to stop us from reconnecting to who they said was gonna come, which they labeled it as they made you think it was a person, a white person, Jesus. But in all actuality, it's the Son, S-U-N, of God. So God is us, right? So the Son is our Father. So we are one, and the Son recognizes its children because we are connected to the soil. All right, so our DNA is connected to the source. And because of that, it is sending us codes through the solar flares that's helping us to awaken and remember. Because the more that we remember, the sooner and more that the parasites on this planet will be purged away. And this has nothing to do with color, because that's a creation of this man made system. It's about frequency. So if you are not operating from the heart, like in Ma'at says that your heart has to be lighter than a feather. If you are not operating in peace and love for one another, but yourself overall, and you're operating out of every other system that was created, you're not matching the frequency of the earth, and she will not recognize you. So she will purge you because you will seem foreign to her. You will be a parasite. Okay, we're going to go so deep into this. We're also going to be talking about how the vaccination was used to halt this awakening. That's probably the part I'm not going to put on YouTube. But let's keep going. These beings, which is us, held telepathic communion, meaning we spoke without words. And I'm telling you, if you guys haven't tried to use your telepathic abilities, you should start practicing because they're online. I've done a lot of telepathic things recently. So I'm telling you guys, and I'm not just saying this to say it, like this is real stuff. This is things that the CIA and military operatives know about us through studying us for so long. Again, they have classified documents and they have some that have been declassified that tell you what they've discovered about our people. This is why they say we're 3/5 of a human, because we're not human in essence. We are just floating around in these dense vessels so that we can make this transition happen. Um, but so like I see somebody ask how to use a telepathic. So basically, you just got to. For me, you had for what I've done is I just knew that I can do it. I didn't doubt it. I didn't question it. I just did it. And when I did it, it worked. So how I did it was one day, um, I was calling my husband, but his phone didn't have no service, and I didn't know that he was in the mountains. And so I was like, I'm not gonna call him. I'm just gonna call him in my head. And I called him in my head, and a lot of you guys, not less than 5 minutes, he called me on the phone. So it works. It works like that. Like you can just say a person's name. Me and my husband been doing it a lot. Like we was talking, making a joke or something about just some little goofy joke, and we both came up with a name, and we was like, all right, say the name on three, and we counted down to three, and we both said the name at the same time, the same way. So you just gotta practice it by knowing that you have that ability. I remember when I was young, um, me and my younger sister, we used to do it a lot because I didn't talk that much when I was little, and she was the only one that I would communicate with because she could communicate the same way I could without talking. So we would communicate like that, and she would talk for me in the times when I didn't want to talk. Um, I see somebody said they can change street lights. I've done that. I can make people move out of my way in traffic. Like I just have the thought of get out of my way, and then as soon as I drop that thought, they just like either get over or drive faster or something. Just know that you can do it, and you'll see it manifesting in your reality because we do have those abilities. The more open you are, the more you'll see it. Also, as a woman, you have womb based wisdom. So there are certain things that you just know because you have a womb. I'll give you guys something that I've been doing recently that has been helping helping me remember so much. I can remember a lot now. And what that is I've been taking castor oil. It has to be in glass, but it's organic castor oil. I'll put some in my belly button, but I also put some on a castor oil pack, which is like a band that you can put over your stomach, right above your like right where your womb and stuff is. You'll pour castor oil on it and just put it over your stomach, and you'll sleep with it on, but you put heat on it. Put a heating pad on top of it. I promise y'all, it's a work of wonders. I promise you. It's doing things to my dreams. It's helping me to decode things. I can see stuff that I didn't know I could see again because I had these abilities when I was younger, but eventually, like, I thought that it was me making it up, so I stopped using them. But now that I'm coming back into remembrance and stuff, it's really working. So as a woman, even as a man, you can do this, but as a woman specifically, you want to get into that womb based wisdom. So you definitely want to do things that's going to help you to reconnect and heal. Also, castor oil heals fibroids, heavy periods, like any like female issues like PCOS and stuff like that. If you do that, castor oil will take it away. Also ancestral recall. So that's just you recall like going through your ancestral line, and they're also going to be giving you memories as well. I'm glad to see how many of you guys are using castor oil. That's y'all. That's good. I love it. But it definitely helps with a lot of stuff. Um, Also, we could read time and energy through dreams, patterns, and symbols. I'm able to do that now again. I'm able to have dreams and interpret them. I'm able to um kind of like not live in time. I'm outside of it in a way. It's hard to explain. It's very hard to explain, but you guys have these abilities. We're not so-called black. They were earthborn. We are earthborn star seeds, architects of civilizations, and record keepers and guardians of balance. So we're here to balance things out. Our empires were built without slave labor because we weren't slaves. There was no usury like they use today, and there were no war-based conquests because everything was done in love and peace and order. We lived in alignment, and that made us a target because we did things the right way. So that made us an automatic target. Part two. Let's talk about what others are. The cast of genetic modification. This is where it gets heavy because it's not about superiority or ego. So please do not think that I'm coming off as egotistical or superior to anybody. I'm not, because in my world, that superiority shit and that ego shit is the same. Is one and the same. If I think that I'm more superior than you, that's because I got ego. If I think that if I have a big ego, then that means I'm more superior than you. I think I'm more superior than you. So they're both the same, and this is not what this is about. This is about truth. You have to know the truth to break the spell. No matter what you are, you can be so-called white, so-called Asian, so-called black, so-called whatever. You gotta want to be you got to know the truth. You got to want to know it, and the truth shall set you free. Okay, so no matter what you are and how you were created, that don't matter. It's about how your heart operates. What frequency is your heart operating from, so that you can wake up, because you've been lied to as well. Maybe being white might have been fun for a while, but now it shouldn't be fun, because when you found out that you too was a debt slave, whatever allegiance that you once had under the false guise of being white, that should have dropped, because y'all were being lied to too, and that should have told you that you have been, in so many words. So it's about what was done to whom and why, because all of us are victims of the same oppressor. And when we realize that, then we can stop playing their game. All right. So these are, I think this is Japanese, Chinese, so-called white, Latina. I don't know which. I maybe think she Mexican. I'm not sure what Salma Hayek is, and Indian. All right. So the modified races engineered caste system. As the Earth cycle shifted, fallen priesthood and elite beings, some non-human, some renegade hybrids, began tampering with the DNA of the original people. They created caste, not race, by inserting animal and non-animal DNA, cutting off parts of the original 12-strand DNA, altering pineal and pituitary function, and flooding the planet with hybrid offspring to dilute the source bloodline. This wasn't just about color, it was about frequency and control. That's what I'm trying to tell y'all. It's about frequency. They created people who can disturb the frequency, because if the frequency is disturbed enough, then us, can be taken down. Okay? It makes us weaker. Examples of genetic tinkering. So the Caucasoid creation. All right. So many who were engineered in Ice Age laboratories. Many were engineered in Ice Age laboratories where animal DNA like wolf, ape, pig was spliced into modified human stock. Pale skin was not and is not natural. It's a byproduct of suppression of carbon and a weakening of solar absorption. So they literally, the same way that they make test tube babies, they created the so-called white race. Not all of them. Some of them are direct descendants of the dark-skinned Europeans, but the majority of them, and I'll tell you how you can know. All right, so these beings were created to survive harsh climates, obey commands, and lack empathy for darker people, not by accident, but by design. This doesn't mean all white people are soulless. It means some were engineered for subservience to empire, and the elite told them it made them better. Okay, the people that are the so-called white people who are of this thing that I'm breaking down, you probably they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't be learning this because they wouldn't have any spark inside of them to make them want to know this truth. So if you're here and you're so-called white, you most likely ain't mixed in with this situation here. Let's talk about Asians and Mongoloid hybrids. Okay, these are real pictures of different Asian and Mongoloid hybrids. And look who I have here at the bottom. It's good old boy Elon Musk. Did you guys know that he was an Asian hybrid? I'm pretty sure no one did. Them saying that he is from South Africa most likely could have thrown you off. All right, let's get into it. Created later through crossbreeding between ancient Olmec-derived peoples and falling beings who fled the sinking of Lemuria. They maintained more order and discipline, but lost the feminine current, resulting in overly yang, which is overly masculine-dominated cultures. The so-called Native Americans, Siberians, are part of this Mongoloid project, inserted into the Americas to play the role of the conquered Indians, a ritual displacement of the real copper-tone peoples. Let's talk about modern Latino and mixed groups. Okay. These are often the result of Spanish, which would be the European, the white European or the pale European, Moorish here, and Indigenous. Okay, that's what the Spanish, most of them are a mix of. Now, some of them have more African features or DNA. Some of them have more American features or DNA, and others a high probability of them have more European features. This is why there is a racial caste system in those Latino places as well. Not a whole lot of places in like deep South America are into that stuff, but like Mexico, Cuba, places like that, they're definitely into the lighter skin is better thing. So many retain vestiges of ancient memory. Oh, so Spanish, Moorish, and Indigenous European hybridization. So they're hybrids through different races. Many retain vestiges of ancient memory, but are confused by colonial religion and language. That religion would be like Catholic, Roman Catholic, stuff like that. They confuse them with that. They also confuse them by taking their native language and giving them Spanish. Colonizers bred these groups intentionally to blur the lines of indigenous identity and dismantle tribal unity. So let's talk about the Bloodline War. The so-called elite class, the ones behind colonialism, empire, banking, and the church, are genetic imposters. They are the descendants of fallen bloodlines exiled from earlier dimensions, off-world beings who cannot regenerate without parasitizing true source blood, and entities who must invert nature to maintain power. They created war between races to harvest melanin-based DNA through rape, slavery, and ritual, confuse the source beings about their origin, hide the bloodlines of the Moors, Hebrews, and original Americans under labels like black. All right, that's the war on our bloodline. Programming through language. These were semantic spells to reprogram consciousness and enforce hierarchy. Black equals void, death, worthless, while white equals pure, superior, clean. That's the spells they put on those words. Who are you? So if you're so-called Black American, you are likely descendants from the mixture of original Americans, Moors, and cosmic beings untouched by African slave ships. Your blood carries the blueprint for planetary restoration, which is why the system attacks your image, poisons your food, and distorts your culture. Who are you? If you're a so-called white person, many of you are descendants of poor Indo-Europeans enslaved by the same elite, then trained to serve empire in exchange for false whiteness. Some of your ancestors fought against the system. Others benefited from it. Either way, the system is feeding on all of us, but especially the melanin activated, earth rooted sovereign soul beings. Now let me set the record straight. White people also have melanin. It's just a different type of melanin. Okay, you have pheomelanin, which is a lesser version of melanin because it cannot absorb the sun. Okay, it is an inversion of natural melanin, and a lot of the ones that I'm talking about who are created, they are unable to activate their pineal gland. So again, if you're a so-called white person and you're in here listening to this, you're not one of those because they're unable to even hear this as truth. They're those ones who will be like, oh, you think you're a sovereign citizen, haha, making jokes and stuff. They're the ones who don't believe that any of this stuff is real. They would not be here. This isn't about race, it's about frequency, memory, and DNA. The true black race is not black, it's the first light. Everyone else has been modified to varying degrees, then used to confuse, dilute, and suppress the original signal. You're not here to beg for inclusion, you're here to trigger planetary recall and the end of a cycle. So we're in this to end this, if that makes sense. We're not trying to keep pointing a finger and saying it's the white man's fault or black people need to pull up their boots, their bootstraps, whatever. We're not doing it. That's not what this is about. This is about the weighing of the heart. In their book, the Bible they wrote that was about our history, in the New Testament, the first testament was about a physical circumcision where the men in the tribes actually had to circumcise themselves. But in the New Testament, it was about the circumcision in the heart, of the heart, an inner circumcision that pierces your heart, that makes you reflect back to self. That's what it's about. It's the Christ frequency that is being given to anybody. As I said, if you've been here for the last 20 generations, you are grafted in American by blood because your ancestors have been here and the land recognizes you. However, the land will not continue to recognize you if you continue to operate from a parasitic frequency. That parasitic frequency is the frequency that will get you eliminated. That's why there are many people of all so-called races dying from sun. They're dying from the sun. It's not because they're so-called black or they're so-called white. It's because they're parasites, period. They do not match the frequency that we're going into. Okay? It is about love for self and love for others. It's not about looking at people and pointing out their differences, because their differences is what makes this place a beautiful place. The myth of junk DNA. I know you guys have probably heard of them talking about junk DNA before, how we have DNA that is dormant, basically. And in pseudoscience, which we call today's science, worldly science, pretty much it's saying that this is useless DNA, but that's not true. So let's get into what junk DNA really is. Excuse me, Western scientists, especially those tied to military, Vatican, and elite genetic programs, discovered in the 20th century that only 3 to 5% of human genome codes for proteins, which is physical function. The rest, they call it junk DNA. But here's the truth. Junk DNA is not junk. It's a dormant divine memory, a locked library of ancestral knowledge, galactic code, sacred memory, frequency mastery, and inner alchemy. So once you become an alchemist, which is when you get how can I put this? How when you get something negative happens to you and you alchemize the energy of that situation into something positive. You don't, go into the negativity that it could be. You see things with balance, right? It's part of the human genome that the so-called black race, the original soul-seeded people of Earth, carry the most dormant DNA. Not broken, not missing, just temporarily disconnected like a sleeper file waiting on the right frequency to reboot it. It stores multi-dimensional perception. It enables intercellular telepathy and intuition. It holds ancient memories of Lemuria, Atlantis, and the first worlds, which is where I'm at with it right now. That's why I'm able to tell you guys this stuff, because I promise it's like I'm just remembering it. It's not even like it's something that I gotta go really look into. It's just like everything is already in my head, and I just go and put it together, and it's just making some more sense. I didn't exceeded 500 slides and I'm still not done. I got to do a whole nother presentation because you only can do 500 slides and I already didn't hit that. Because all of this stuff is just like, as I'm going through it, it's just like I just remember it and I'm able to just put it together where I can help you guys hit that frequency for you to start remembering, to reboot y'all junk DNA. It governs light body activation, DNA regeneration, and internal memory. Okay. What disconnected it? What disconnected our DNA? The elite class were taking fallen, we're talking fall, I mean, excuse me, the elite class, and we're talking fallen priesthoods, bloodline parasites, and hybrid infiltrators couldn't kill off the original Earth people, so they opted for a slow disconnection through trauma like generational rape, torture, slavery, and war fracture, because they fracture the energetic grid of the body. Trauma disrupts cellular memory transmissions through the nervous system because it makes your nervous system dysregulated, where your seven seals that they talk about in Revelation, which is the seven chakras that go up and that from the bottom of your spine to the top. That is how you connect back to the true source. So when you're under extreme amounts of trauma, it dysregulates your nervous system, which then messes with or disrupts your cellular memory and the transmission of information from the universe to you, and that creates an energetic amnesia. So this is when when they say we have fallen into these bodies, this is when you have fell into the density of the vessel that you're using, and you become the vessel, which is the straw man. So you think that you're the all caps name. This stuff goes deep. I'm telling y'all, before they bound us on paper, they bound us spiritually. They bound us spiritually first. They erased our spiritual memory first. Next is the false belief system. So religion, race theory, capitalism, school, and psychiatry are all designed to scramble your internal compass. Because if you believe in these belief systems, which believe in something gives you so much room for doubt because you only believe it, you don't actually have proof that it exists or that it's true. But all of these systems of people being stuck in religion, being stuck in this white black thing, being stuck in capitalism, being stuck in school and psychiatry, saying that you have these disorders, that turns the internal compass off where you are unable to connect to source to get those downloads. And this is when you believe you are inferior or cursed, like how they told you in school when they taught you that history in America started with you being a slave. Your DNA stops seeking higher function because you think that you're less than. 3, chemical and frequency warfare. They do this by adding fluoride to the water, vaccines, processed food, EMF radiation through the Wi-Fi routers in our homes, through different frequencies on the corners of the streets for the like every little box that they have out there for different things. They throw off EMF radiation and frequencies that disturb our overall internal frequency. Pharmaceuticals, so them having you all these different drugs. Pharmaceutical or pharmacy comes from the word pharmakia. Pharmakia means sorcery. So any of their drugs are sorcery. Real quick, let me stop sharing. I want to show y'all something. Let me stop sharing real quick. I want to show y'all something that when I first started looking into this, it blew my mind completely. And I know it's gonna do the same for y'all. Hold on. All right. Let me get my screen back up. All right. Y'all see this? This is the Walgreens logo. What does this look like right here? What does this look like right here? To me, it looked like a brewing pot, like the witch's brew. A cauldron. Yeah, there you go. That looked like a cauldron, and the stars represent the magic being put inside of it. To me, that's what it looked like. What y'all think? Yeah. And then look at this one. This was another one of their logos. Doesn't this also too look very witchy?
Yeah.
So they tell you in their logos. That's how they gain your consent. So everything that they do is these are different. They're different logos over time. How many times they changed it, but everything that they do it's called mortar and pestle. So let's look up what a mortar and pestle is. Let's look up what that is. Let's see what it's used for. Look at it. First of all, look at the images. Don't that look kind of witchy? Of course, you're using it to like mix things together, right? Let's see what it says. A mortar and pestle is a set of tools used to prepare ingredients by grinding or crushing them into paste or powder. The mortar bowl is a bowl and the pestle is a club-shaped tool used to grind ingredients against the mortar's interior. They're versatile, blah, 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 blah. But they're used for making things, putting stuff together like a witch. So Walgreens is telling you that they're using sorcery on you every time they give you one of their drugs. Their pharmaceutical system is again derived from the root word or the original meaning etymology pharmakia meaning sorcery. So keep that in mind. We have natural herbs that can pretty much cure everything except death, and yet they won't tell you about those. They'll instead give you something that they've named. Oh, also, if you get bored enough one day, start looking into the names of some of these medications because some of the medications are named after demons. Is demons good or bad? It depends on where you are in your ascension. A demon can be bad if you don't realize that you have them inside of you and you know how to control them. That's the only way a demon can be bad. But if you realize that you're both good and bad and you understand that to a level of alchemizing, then the demons fall at your will. This is what they meant in the Bible when they said that Solomon, was it Solomon? I think it was Solomon, yeah, the wisest man. He had control over, and he had the keys to 72 demons. So he was able to control the demons. Also, when Jesus died and went to hell, he descended into hell and he took the key. That was basically telling you that he ascended from his lower self, which is his root. The root chakra is what has you, the root and sacral chakra is what has you in pleasure, constant pleasure seeking, or constant safety seeking, which are both tied to trauma and fear. Okay, so you got to rise out of operating from those frequencies, but they do the things that I'm telling you here to keep you in those low frequencies. Oh, sorry. So let's keep going. Again, chemical and frequency warfare through fluoride, vaccines, processed food, EMF radiation, pharmaceuticals all act like frequency jammers that cloud the body's ability to receive divine code. So when you hear people say, I just got to download, I got to download, they're talking about these divine messages that's coming through divine code, which are giving us clues to beating this matrix, so to say. But bloodline mixing and hijacking. Not all mixing is bad, but elite bloodlines intentionally breed with or bred with and against original blood to dilute spiritual potential and control inheritance rights. In short, they couldn't delete your divinity, so they buried it. Or they tried to, at least. Let's talk about how our frequencies are reconnecting now. So that junk DNA is activating again, and that's why we're seeing spontaneous awakenings through different people, psychic children, past life recall, ancestral memory dreams, sound, light, and crystal resonance, synchronicity acceleration, and emotional purging and inner resistance to all systems. What's happening is that the Earth's Schumann resonance is rising, and the sun is sending off solar flares that is resparking that dormant DNA so it can reconnect. Our melanin is the biological antenna, and it's helping to realign those signals so that we can get those messages in remembrance. Spiritual initiations are cleansing the bloodline trauma and allowing higher codes to come online. So again, if you've been in America for over the past 500 years, 20 generations, and you have been, breaking them curses in your family. Say, for instance, you're so-called white and you come from a racist family, and you're saying, I'm not going to do that. I don't believe in that. I know what my people did. I'm being real about it. I see it for what it is, and it was wrong, and I'm not teaching it. I'm not moving it into my family. Or if you was from like a so-called black family, like for me, I just didn't want to put men before my children, and I didn't want to be a woman that had a broken family, meaning, and I don't mean this in any harm, but this is a curse in my family where the mothers and fathers don't stay together, and then the mothers have children by different men. I didn't want that. That was something that I saw as a problem. It caused a lot of division. It caused a lot of jealousy. It caused a lot of situations that could have been prevented had people made better decisions and choices. That's neither here nor there, but I just knew that was something that ended with me, and I didn't want to be a part of that. And I didn't care about, holding on to the titles of different family members and stuff, because at the end of the day, if I wasn't happy, then my life wasn't worth living, and I'm not giving it up to nobody. But this reconnection is what the system fears most. So they don't want us to know what's going on right now. So they're creating a lot of distractions to keep us in the frequency of fear, because in a frequency of fear, that's how they can control the narrative, because we manifest the reality that they want to happen. So that's why they're talking about this war with Palestine and Israel and all that kind of stuff. But that's just something to try to get the last bit of energy from us before they start being exterminated at a mass scale. So why the so-called white race was created as subservient? Let's be blunt. Whiteness was engineered. Not white people, but the social class of whiteness. It was designed to serve the elite while believing they were superior, standing between the original people and their inheritance, obey, consume, and enforce laws without realizing they were also enslaved, but just on a different way, in a different way. And many of these so-called white beings were bred with limited melanin, shortened telomeres. This is a scientific thing that they've done for mass majority of the so-called white race. They bred them with limited melanin on purpose, and they shorten their telomeres, which are the connections of their DNA to each other. They were designed to be emotionally disconnected, tribally scattered, and intellectually dependent on authority. So if it's not in a book, most of them don't believe it. They have been designed to be spiritually cut off unless they reclaim ancient Celtic, Druidic, or Slavic roots, which were also destroyed. Because they also didn't want you to reach back into who your root people were. Again, everybody here comes from a brown person, a dark person. Everybody. The world comes from the original dark, brown, melanated, copper, whatever you want to call it, people. They also did not want you to connect back to that if you do have that in your roots. So this is why whiteness must be upheld at all costs, because not because it's superior, but because without that lie, their entire system would collapse along with all the rest of their lies. Junk DNA is the soul's encrypted blueprint. It holds your pre-colonial memories, your ancient contracts, and your power to reshape reality. They disconnected it using trauma, toxins, and false identity. It is reconnecting through your pain, through your awakening, and through your remembrance. You're not evolving, you are reactivating, and this happens this always happens through every artificial structure. So race, religion, gender, roles, nations, even time will begin to fall because you'll start to see through every system. You're going to see the matrix for what it is. The truth. Other races are roughly 6,000 years old. Like they say when they teach in Christianity that the earth is 6,000 years old, which is a big false, like it's a big fiction. Let's begin here. The so-called races of man, which are Asian, European, Semitic, even certain Arab and hybrid lineages, did not exist on Earth 700 plus years ago. They are the product and Semitic is the false Semitics because we are the true Semitics, okay? The false Semitics are the Ashkenazi, which are from Khazaria. They are the product of genetic intervention, selective breeding, and hybrid or spiritual hijacking initiated by rogue priesthoods and fallen elite orders around 4000 BCE. At the tail end of the Atlantean Age, just before the collapse of the last global civilization, the original people, which are the melanated earth-seeded beings, had been on the planet for hundreds of thousands, even millions of years, cycling through golden ages of deep harmony, alchemical mastery, high spiritual technology, and multidimensional awareness. But that all changed with one key agenda. How can a soulless class take over a planet they did not create, cannot harmonize with, and were never invited to govern? They needed new beings, compliant, emotionally programmable, disconnected from source, to be their buffer class, and thus the 6,000-year-old experiment began. How they were created, the genetic manufacturing of races. So laboratory breeding programs in Eurasia, Anatolia, and Caucasus, or Caucasus. The oldest known to insiders, genetic engineering programs occurred in caves, mountain ranges, and underground chambers, some of which are located in Mount Elbrus in the Caucasus Mountains, Altai, which is the region of Siberia, Gobi Desert ancient complexes, and parts of Anatolia, which is ancient Turkey. Again, that is around where the fake Semites, which are uh the uh the Jewish people that run everything, the Khazarians. Okay. So what they did, they spliced animal DNA, that of dogs, wolves, pigs, apes, and some other animals as well, into modified human templates. They shortened the telomeres and lifespans to keep control over reproduction cycles. They diminished melanin content, which dims spiritual receptivity and emotional intelligence. They altered the pineal gland and neurological pathways, making submission to external authority easier. And they removed certain etheric strands of DNA, reducing multidimensional memory and ancestral recall. So these new creations became the first prototypes of what we call today white, European, Asian Mongoloid types, Middle Eastern hybrid stock, and certain caste-based African and Indian populations. They were spiritually severed, biologically limited, and intellectually coded for obedience, not by accident, but by elite design. So all skin folk ain't kinfolk means that they have been cloning people for a long time. Why 6,000 years ago? If y'all don't know who this is on the picture, it is the Anunnaki. This is a Anunnaki. Because around 4000 BCE, the Atlantean priesthood, corrupted by ego, war, and forbidden knowledge, attempted to create a new world order by splitting Earth into dominant and subservient castes. This time, this time period includes the rise of patriarchal cults like the sun god worship, Yahweh, Baal, etc., the formation of slave societies in Sumer, Akkad, and ancient Egypt's dynastic period, the first widespread genocides of melanated tribes in Eurasia and northern Africa, and the global floods and earth shifts that ended Lemuria and Atlantis, which were used as a cover for genetic resets. So those floods were orchestrated so that they can create a new race. This race of people were a race of people who are going to be their slaves. Okay? They would work for them to get what they wanted done. The white experiment. So-called white people in their engineered form were the result of combining select melanated tribal genetics from albino Dravidians and Neanderthal remnants. Okay, crossbreeding with animal DNA, gene editing to suppress melanin shortened skull shape and narrow emotional frequency. They were taught to worship hierarchy, to fear the unknown, and to obey external validation. They were not born evil, they were born into a code of limitation, then taught that limitation was superiority. They were used just like others to enforce control over the true rulers of Earth, which are the original people. This big-headed fellow here, for those of you who don't know, is Yaqub, and what is it? I think they was talking about it in the Nation of Islam many years ago, where they were saying that white man was a creation or whatever. But this is allegedly, and I think Noble Drew Ali, no, was it him? No, Malachi Z. York wrote about the different ones in his book, and he had like illustrations or whatever. But this is a supposed picture or alleged picture of the creator of the so-called white race, Yaqub. So this would be the father of the white nations. Just like the movie They Clone Tyrone, I was watching that yesterday. I didn't finish watching it because I was watching it analytically. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna keep watching it, and when I get out of it, I'll probably share with you guys. But what I'm getting so far, that movie is just so telling. They were really creative in how they are telling the truth with that one. But the Asian experiment. So Asian Mongoloid races emerged from Atlantean refugee experiments, and they were where early Lemurian tribes were genetically crossed with draconian descended hybrids, engineered Europeans, and spiritless temple-born children. Their societies became highly organized, mentally sharp, but often lacking deep heart connection or root memory. They were used to replace and erase the copper-tone American tribes through the modern Native Americans. This is why nobody wants to mess with the Chinese military, because the Chinese military is the biggest. Again, they were making so many people that I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s in China, they had they had to enact the one child law because it was too many people. They were having too many of them. They were breeding like rats, and it was just becoming a burden on the economy and the environment. So their government, I'm not making an excuse for it because it was wrong what they did, but that was what they said. Their government decided to enact the one child law where families had to have one child and it had to be a boy. If it was a girl, they got to get rid of her. If it was you had another child at the second one, you got to get rid of it. So they was literally just killing their babies or leaving their babies out in the marketplace to die. A lot of them are also became orphans and were picked up and shipped over here to America. So why they hid this? Because if the truth was known, so-called black people will realize they're not descendants of slaves, but the creators of civilization. White and other races will see they've been used as spiritual tools and biological shields. The illusion of racial equality would fall, and the true interdimensional war, the one about bloodlines, memory, and spiritual power, would be exposed. I know you guys heard over time that this is a spiritual war. Well, this is what we meant by that. You're not equal. You are more, not in arrogance, but in origin. And the beings created to subdue you were given spiritual blindness, guilt, and genetic confusion as a karmic cloak. But now your junk DNA is reactivating, the lie of 6,000-year-old civilization is cracking, and the children of the lab experiments are realizing they've been used too. We are not in a racial war, we are in a genetic memory war, and the only way out is to remember who started it and why. Because why are you doing this? Why are you causing so much turmoil over across timelines and generations? It don't make sense. Let's go into the spell breakers. Who are the spell breakers? Do you feel like you're a spell breaker? Unmute yourself and tell me if you feel like you're a spell breaker.
I'm a spell breaker.
Most
Absolutely.
definitely
Absolutely.
spell breaker.
100%.
Yes.
I know I am.
Absolutely. I know I am.
Totally.
Joshua, your
100%
birthday.
over here.
Oh, yeah.
I know that's
Your
right.
birth date has to do with what kind of spell breaker you are, like the
Mhm.
day and the year and the month, not like the astrology they've tried to trap us into, though.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. And the more that you know about the vessel that you're in, the more you understand what spells you're here to break and why. So that's absolutely true. So I'm talking about the mulatto, Creole, Cajun, Melungian, however you say it, and all those bearing hybridized indigenous American Moorish blood. Not just mixed people, but ancestral code breakers born into the exact fracture design to keep the lie alive. And here's the shocking truth. They are the glitch in the matrix. So see, what they tried to create by diluting, and I'm using air quotes, to dilute the gods, they actually created their destruction by creating these mulattoes, Creoles, Cajuns, and Melungeons. They created their destruction by creating us. Okay? Because I'm descendant of mulattoes, and I know pretty much a lot of people are. Because go look back into the census records and you will see. They were calling them mulattoes, and then they called them Negroes, then they called them Black, then they called them African American. Most of us here in America are mixed up, period. That's what they don't want you to know. Again, if your family been here for 20, you can trace your family back in the Americas for 20 generations. That means that you are here. Yes, the Cajun Creoles, we are the spell breakers, okay? The evidence of what the system tried to erase. The key to collapsing the spell. So let's go deep. What are mulattoes, Creoles, Cajuns, and Melungeons really? They're not just a mixed race. That's the modern lie used to confuse it all. These terms originally describe hybrid lineages born from indigenous American tribes like Yamasee, Powhatan, Saponi, etc., Moors and free people of color, European migrants, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Irish, Dutch, Scots, Africans who were either seafarers, Moors, or indentured, not slaves. These were noble lineages, often holding land patents, titles, diplomatic connections, spiritual knowledge, root work, hoodoo, Creole, voodoo, and herbal mastery, and also multilingual fluency. They spoke French, English, indigenous dialects, Hebrew, and Arabic. They weren't the poor, enslaved, illiterate caste the system makes them out to be. They were the middle layer, and that's what made them dangerous. Why the system feared them. These lineages proved the lie of the entire racial construct because you couldn't tell their race by skin tone. You couldn't enslave them legally. Many had treaties, land, or noble ties. They moved through both black and white societies like ghosts. Their existence proved that so-called black people were already here, not imported. Their genealogies connected to Hebrew, Moorish, and indigenous roots, not Africa-only narratives. They were the walking contradiction to the plantation system. So the system reclassified them over and over from free people of color to Negro to Black, from Indian to colored to African American. This was done to collapse memory. Even if you were so-called classified as white, because again, they would give you the title based off of what you look like the most. So we hold the memory. Mulatto, Creole, Melungeon, Cajun people often carry dreams of two worlds, feelings of not fitting in, confusion about race and identity, ancestral whisperings that something doesn't add up because it doesn't. We are born in between, which is where the lie falls apart. And that in between is sacred. In every ancient culture, it is the threshold walker who can pass between realms, the shaman, the priestess, the truth teller. These people are often activators. When we begin to seek our true bloodline, we collapse the racial lie and become the evidence that there were no Africans shipped over in mass, that Creoles, Melungeons, and Moors were the noble classes of indigenous America, that the Civil War, Indian Acts, and forced integration were meant to erase these bloodlines and not protect them. So it goes deep because they have been. I'll go a little deeper real quick. So yin and yang, right? You know the yin and yang sign. You got one side black, one side white, one side feminine, one side masculine. But together they are balanced. Well, that's what we are. With them trying to create us to be a distortion of the true originals, which we are descendants of, they actually created, and what they don't know is that one drop is what makes you a god because the blood is undilutable. You can't dilute it. That's what they don't know. So what they try to do created the balance that was necessary to break all of this, and that's why we're the spell breakers. So why we are the key to breaking the spell, because we are the only ones who can remember both sides, what the whitewash history said and what the ancestral memory screams. We can crack through false tribalism and prove that it's not about race, but we're not one race, but one family that was divided. Disarm the racial spell by refusing to pick a side created by the oppressor, and reconstruct family lines that were hidden, renamed, or misfiled by census and government roles. When mulatto, Creole, Cajun, and Melungeon people reclaim their indigenous Moorish ancestry and then teach it boldly, we dismantle the entire colonial timeline because we're going back into the divine order of things through what we represent, which is balance. The spell work, or the spell they were caught in. These people, meaning us, were hated by so-called whites and mistrusted by blacks, so-called blacks. But why? Because the system told both sides. They're not really us. They think they're better. I can't tell you how many times I heard that. They're confused or they don't belong. And that isolation was intentional because an isolated key never opens the door. But now the key is turning. So as long as they could keep us thinking that we don't fit in, you know how you have some kids that are biracial and they like the white people don't accept me and the black people don't accept me. My entire life, and I've never really fit in with the super so-called black people, and I never fit in with the super so-called white people. Everybody that I ever fit in with was somebody that looked close to me or a little lighter, and it was weird because it was just like a instant connection. And I'm not just saying this; I'm just saying colorism was created to keep us from realizing who is who. And again, we are here to bring balance and to break the spells that have us seeing color and seeing us ourselves as crayons and operating under their legal system. Real world truths in history. Melungeons in Appalachia were found to have Portuguese, Indigenous, Hebrew, and African blood, denied land and called non-persons. Creoles in Louisiana were not slaves but landowners, midwives, French-speaking diplomats, and business owners. Cajuns were French Acadians exiled from Canada, often merging with Choctaw, Blackfoot, and other native peoples. And mulattoes were not always the product of rape, but of old Moorish European diplomatic bloodlines tracing to Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. This means these bloodlines are not broken, they are encoded, because this is something that has been going on before they colonized these lands. Before they wanted to create this bullshit that we're going through now. As I said this so long ago before I even knew what I know now. I said that America is doing the same thing that it's been doing with all of these nations coming to this land. It's just that in the past they came to this land with reverence and respect. They did what they were supposed to do. We operated however we supposed to operate, and then they left. They went on about their business. Now it's people coming over here disrespecting the true landowners, calling us names and treating us like we don't belong in the land that we allowed them to be in. That's what's happening now. But we have to see through the color lines and the barriers, the color of law that they have us seeing through, and we got to realize that it's not about that anymore. Because it never was. It was something that was encoded into this system to control us. Why brain fog lifts when you hear this? Because the subconscious knows. These people meaning us, are walking encrypted files. When the truth is spoken to us, something clicks. The migraine stops, the fatigue eases, the shame dissipates, the fire returns, because we were told that we were nothing, but our very existence proves the system's entire story is fake. Because if there was a such thing as race, how is it that we were mulatto, Creole, Cajun, Melungeon before they came up with these race codes and bullshit stuff? Classifications. That's the question I don't hear nobody asking. If any of that was true, the way they told you it was, then how come when you look in history, you don't see proof of that before a certain time period? Why? You also can look in certain parts of history and see people that was around before then who look like they are mixed. They do not look like they are just pure one thing. They look mixed because they were. And we've been blending in the whole time. I told you guys, although Elvis did what he did by stealing ideas from other people, he too was a Melungeon that looked white enough for them to adopt. But do you think that a so-called uncreative white man will be able to do the things that he did to be remembered like he's remembered? Same with Abraham Lincoln. He's remembered to this day. People talk about him. He has statues and stuff. Our people are hard to forget. No matter how light their skin may look, there's an essence that we have that no one has. If you are mulatto, Creole, Cajun, or Melungeon, you are not mixed. You are the missing link. The royal bloodline that escaped the noose. The memory file that couldn't be deleted. You don't have an identity crisis, the system does. And when you stand in your truth fully, the spell breaks for everyone. And when you stand in your truth, you are declaring that you are not a part of this system and their classifications. You are connecting back to your ancestral bloodline, and you're connecting back with your true sovereignty that you had through royal blood that you belong to. They held a piece of this empire as their inheritance. Case studies: where you come from and where you're forced to be. Louisiana Creoles, New Orleans and Bayou communities. The origin is descendants of French colonialists, Spanish Moorish traders, and indigenous tribes like Choctaw, Huma, etc., and also free Moorish sailors from pre-1600s voyages. They were found in small bayou parishes, Ascension, Lafourche, I hope I'm saying it right, Lafourche, I'm probably not, Terrebonne, and New Orleans burials. Current environment, often lived in flood. Go ahead.
Lafouche.
Lafouche. Okay, Lafouche. Because it's French. I was trying to get there. Thank you. Current environment, often lived in flood-prone neighborhoods, low-income housing, or historic Creole quarters lacking infrastructure. Experimentation, exposure to high chemical levels post-Katrina for behavioral study. Like they put they was doing studies on alcohol and drug resilience and how PTSD pretty much changed the people. So they had done a lot of releasing of drugs there. Education experiments on English literacy and supplemental reading programs. And Greek law, Creoles may marry across Moorish, Latins, and so-called African American lines, but still remain this intersection. They're not black or white, they carry all. So Creoles are mixed with a lot of royal lines. And it's an old picture from the 1800s. Does she look so-called black, or what they want you to think a black person look like? Or she looks like somebody who has a couple of things in her. That's the secret, guys. That is the secret about us in America. I'm gonna be the only realest person to tell you this, because most people is jumping on one side or the other. You got people that are spreading truth, and maybe they're not doing it with ill intentions, but a lot of them are not getting to this. They're not going into how we are mixed up in America. That's why Africans know we don't belong to them, because they know that we have more than one bloodline running through our veins. Appalachian Melungeons are in eastern Kentucky and Tennessee. So the origin is a mixture of indigenous eastern tribes, Saponi, Shawnee, Moorish travelers, and Portuguese seafarers. They are spread in isolated mountain hollers in Lee County, Virginia, Harlan, Kentucky, and Johnson, Tennessee. Environment is coal mining poverty. A lot of them are descendants of the miners who were going into the going in mining coal. Um, you have limited utilities, addiction, generational trauma, and also I didn't put it here, but incest. It's a lot of incest. Experimentation. They were conducted school IQ tracing, distinguishing Melungeon children from whites and bonds. So they were basically saying that they were dumber than the white children. Behavioral medical studies on mountain wealth cycles, low academic performance, exposure to mining toxins to track genomic resistance, and the bloodline truth. They are a mix of European, Moorish, and indigenous DNA. They often are misclassified as white trash by rural whites, not black enough by so-called African Americans. And they are neither. They are the ancestral bridge because they carry more than one bloodline. And I have seen people like this before. Mulattoes in Virginia and the Carolinas. This is where my people come from. This is not a picture of my people, but my people look just like this. Mulattoes in Virginia and Carolinas, Tidewater and Low Country. Origin: intermarriage between Powhatan Yamasee Spanish Moorish sailors and free Spanish black traders pre-1600s. We were spread across townships in the Chesapeake Bay, Cape Fear, Charleston's uplands. Environment: housing projects, strip neighborhoods where HUD conducts testing on substance abuse, family welfare, and drug court recidivism. Literally, I experienced all of that. Experimentation, grant funded racial integration, psychological testing, public health agencies studying COVID outcomes by race, because they were really marketing to the people that are in these areas to get the COVID vaccination. I remember my grandmother had passed away. It was January 2021. This was right before I moved to Texas. And the pastor that my mother had to do her eulogy was trash, bro, because all he kept doing was talking about COVID and how you should go get vaccinated. And at that point, I had already knew that it was a game and that this crap was bullcrap. So I just was like, I wish he shut up, because this is so rude to be talking about this during a funeral. And that was the last funeral I ever will attend and ever have gone to. I'll never go to another funeral in my life. I don't care who it is.
Don't
But
forget,
anyway,
they say that we can take more pain than everybody else. That's why they do, especially the Black women, the way they do in
mm-hmm,
hospitals and whatnot. That's why they
mm-hmm.
experiment on us. They're like, oh, they can take it.
Mm-hmm. And that's true
Yes,
that we do
ma'am.
have a high pain tolerance.
And they programmed the virus, or whatever, the bioweapon, I should say, to hit melanated peoples and poor whites more. Like the only two
Yes.
races that didn't get hit as bad were Khazarians and Chinese.
Facts.
That's
facts.
funny.
Mm-hmm. Because they
Even though
knew.
they were like, oh, it came from them over there, which we all know
Oh,
that.
we gonna get into it. Y'all already speaking about it. We gonna get into it, but it's a little later down, and we gonna talk about everything that was used for, because it's crazy. But y'all on point. Also, they use synthetic diets tested in food deserts. So they would grow foods in certain environments and give us food that went against how we supposed to be eating. So that's why you see them, heavier than they supposed to be, using walkers and stuff just to make them sick. Bloodline carries sovereign land rights via Powhatan land patents. DNA includes South European plus Indigenous plus Moorish and some African. And we were rejected by all races because we hold the keys to the original Tidewater cultures. So that is us mulattoes and that descend from Virginia and the Carolinas. Now you have the Cajuns and Zydeco communities in Acadiana, South Louisiana. The origin is Acadiana, which is French Catholic refugees who intermarried with Huma and
Acadia.
Is Acadia?
Acadian.
Acadian, okay. My reading is
Yeah,
off.
they came down.
Acadian, my
They
bad.
came They got kicked out of Canada by the Brits, and they came
Right.
down and settled all along the East Coast.
That's right. So, Acadians are French Catholic refugees which intermarried with the Huma, Atakapa, Biloxi, and free Black Moorish seafarers. They are spread in parishes like Lafayette, St. Martin, Iberia, and small farm towns. Environment is Koch-funded health studies on hypertension, diabetes. FEMA supplies trailers monitored for mental health post-hurricane, and music-based psychological studies on poverty and ethnic pride. The bloodline is deep rooted in Creole, Indigenous, Moorish, African ancestry and not claimed fully by Black or white communities, but they carry the spirit of ancestral resilience because of so much that they went through. And these are some people that are of these. And as you can see, they're not Black, they don't have dark skin, but they're still a part of this bloodline. And that's Anthony Mackie, for those of you that don't know. He's an actor, but he's
And
Cajun.
then, real quick, I was in one of those FEMA trailers during Katrina.
So you can speak from personal experience.
Yeah, we were right across sugarcane fields.
See? It's crazy. They've been experimenting on us the whole time. Even like Hurricane Katrina, that was engineered.
And the crazy part is that even in our own state, they were calling us refugees,
Wow.
as if New Orleans was like its own separate country.
Wow. That's crazy. We can dig into that too. That like there's a lot of stuff that once we go through what I'll be talking about, you'll just be able to see through every program, system, everything that they ever put on us. But then now you have the hybrid communities. I'm from Baltimore, but I'm not my people are not originally from Baltimore. So those are people who are originally from Baltimore, born and raised. I have been born and raised there, Chicago and Oakland, California. Their origins is migrations of Creole mulatto. Their people mixed with Gullah Geechee, Washita, and Moorish freedmen. The environment is controlled release drug experiments. Yes, that's what Johns Hopkins does. We have a Johns Hopkins hospital down there, and that's what they do. They release a lot of drugs out there through experimentation. Public school abolition of dual language, so French Moorish idioms. Police biometric testing through RFID tattoos and nanotech monitoring. The bloodline speak Melungeon Creole patois. That's why in Baltimore, a lot of people don't understand our accent. They say we talk crazy and stuff. Well, we speak a Melungeon Creole patois. It's a lot of some people say like on the West Coast over here, they ask me like, "Am I from England or something?" And it's like I don't understand how they hear that, but they ask that. But that's because we speak a patois. Not 100% any one race. So we not 100% one or the other. We are mixed of all. And the polar opposite of a limited classification. Okay? The warfare, brain fog, DNA shifts, and social illusions. Why these environments exist. To isolate hybrid bloodlines from both Black and white communities. To conduct behavioral tests on substance use, loyalty, trauma response. To observe genetic resilience or weakness under diet, vaccine, EMF, and toxic alcohol exposure. To perpetrate a script. If you live there, you're Black. If you live there, you're poor white. Be grateful. That's literally how they played with us. What they know secretly. These bloodlines contain multi-strain DNA codes, Moorish wisdom, indigenous treaties, and they want them fractured, disoriented, and shallow. They're using urban planning, education, food deserts, medical trials to suppress the bridge signal. So we are highly targeted. So when they give you the narrative in the so-called white communities that Black people live in the worst conditions, I have seen with my own eyes some places where poor white people live that is just as bad, if not worse. Um, go on the West Coast and go to Portland, Oregon, and that's one of the places that the same stuff that's happening up in Baltimore, New York, Philly, and DC, same things happen over there, but the people are white, so-called white. They are strung out on fentanyl. They're dying from overdoses. They're they're going through a lot. They are welfare recipients. They get food stamps. It's not a color thing. Why our bloodlines refuse to mix? Because they carry it all. Indigenous stewardship codes, Moorish navigation and trade, African communal systems, and European linguistic resilience. They don't fit in either box. With white schools, they're not black. With black schools, they're not black enough. With white schools, they're too dark and overlooked. And with fake Native Americans, they're not recorded by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, so they're not recognized. So this means they possess the unfiltered code, the key to collapsing the division, because we don't have one bloodline in us. We are not lost. We are the lever. They activate memory in your DNA. Or should I say we? We collapse false identity structures. We remember what others forgot, and we break the spell if they step into our role. So we have to know who we are so that we can help collapse this. If you are on the so-called white side, you can help us because you know by your blood and who you're related to if you are one of us, if you was raised poor. And I'm talking about in ghettos next to people that look like me. That's what it is. That's how you know. Displacement and experimentation timeline, the hybrid bloodline blueprint. So let's talk about the Creoles in Louisiana. Again, we're going to talk about their original region. The original region was New Orleans Bayou parishes. The displaced region is the urban projects in New Orleans, Houston, Texas, and surrounding low income zones. They are the environmental tactics that is used against them is giving them toxic water after Hurricane Katrina, targeting literacy experiments on Creole speaking children, and FEMA data harvesting for post-trauma behavior patterns. So if you were in that FEMA camp, they were seeing how what all of that stuff that happened during Hurricane Katrina, how it affected you and gave you like trauma patterns and behavior patterns to change you. These people were the product of Moorish, Indigenous, French, and Spanish blood, untraceable by modern race boxes. After Katrina, many were quietly relocated and moved in trauma and resilience testing, and a lot were killed. Melungeons, Appalachia. Original region was Eastern Kentucky and Tennessee and Southwest Virginia. They were displaced into coal towns, isolated mountain hollers, and poverty-stricken rural zones. The environmental taxes used against them was IQ and literacy tracking in segregated schools, mining toxic exposure to track immune DNA shifts, secret social experiments to integration of literacy and behavior. Melungeons are a forgotten class, descendants of Moors, indigenous tribes, and Southern Europeans, labeled triracial isolates and wiped from official records. So you're never going to hear anything about them because they don't want you to know. That's why you never would have knew that Elvis and Abraham Lincoln and Babe Ruth, their favorite, was one. Mulatto, Virginia and Carolinas, original region, Tidewater, Virginia, Low Country, South Carolina. Displaced region, inner cities in Richmond, Raleigh, Columbia, Norfolk. Environmental tactics used, deliberate food deserts and dietary manipulation, reclassification programs from colored to Negro to Black. HUD studies on generational poverty and behavioral patterns. These mixed bloodlines held land patents, tribal affiliations, and noble lineage. Their erasure involved both paperwork and psychological warfare. Cajuns, Acadia, and Acadia, Louisiana. Original region, Eastern Kentucky, Tennessee. Oh, I messed up on my thing. Let's keep going. I messed up on my thing. It's a repeat. Urban hybrids. So we went over this already, but I'm just going over it again. Baltimore, Chicago, Oakland. Original region, descendants of Creole, Mulatto, Gullah bloodline, Southeast and Deep South. Displaced region, Section 8 housing. I grew up on that. High surveillance projects, ghettoized zones. Environmental tactics used, RFID and biometric exposure, EMF saturation and Wi-Fi behavioral data mining, synthetic food testing, vaccination pattern studies, and public school psych profile testing and emotional numbing programs. These urban hybrids are not just Black. They hold the forgotten languages, spiritual gifts, and treaty-based birthrights of all the original tribes and traveling Moors. They are surrounded by chaos and numbed by design. And this is Baltimore. This is Oakland. This is Chicago. Don't they kind of look the same? Don't they kind of look the same? And so that's what I had to grow up in, this environment here. We carry all the codes, Indigenous, Moorish, African, and European, cannot be boxed into black or white, are being watched because we are the spiritual wild cards. Our very existence is a threat to racial control systems because if we reclaim who we are, the illusion of separation collapses. We are the bridge, the memory holders, and the prophecy keepers. So it's up to us to see the truth. The real timeline, displacement, erasure, and hybrid experimentation. So around the 15 to 1600s was the arrival and intermarriage and trade. So in 1526, Spanish, Moors, Sephardic Jews, and African traders began mixing with indigenous women on the southeastern coast, predating Jamestown. 1607, Jamestown, Virginia established. Early colonists recorded copper-colored natives already speaking broken French and Portuguese. In 1664, Maryland enacted laws that if an English woman marries a Negro or mulatto, the children are enslaved, the bloodline is criminalized. Early DNA of America was already mixed. They responded by targeting the children. That's what I keep trying to tell y'all. This is not new. It's not new. It's just been hybridized and weaponized. But it's something that was happening before they colonized these lands. 1705 to 1776, land theft, color codes, and the rise of paper genocide. In 1705, Virginia slave codes were enacted, which begins the race-based caste system that turns spiritual identity into property. In the 1730s, the Gullah Geechee, Yamasee, and Powhatan tribes began being labeled as free-colored in tax and census documents. In 1776, American independence is declared while Indigenous Moorish tribal allies are classified as hostile or non-citizen. They weren't building a nation, they were stealing one already built. In the 1800s, reclassification, Indian removal, and land erasure. 1830, Indian Removal Act displaced hybrid and dark-skinned tribes from the east to Oklahoma. Many refused and are classified as black, color, or freemen. 1831 to 1839, the Trail of Tears, where Melungeon, Choctaw Creek, and Seminole families are removed, killed, or absorbed into black communities. 1860s, Creoles, mulattoes, and indigenous Moors served in both Union and Confederate armies in exchange for promises of land and citizenship that most never received. In 1865, the abolition of slavery, in air quotes, but instead of land restitution, hybrid people are being pushed into tenant farming, urban servitude, and forced migration north. And then the Civil War wasn't about freeing slaves, it was about remapping sovereignty. So, you know the saying, we don't die, we multiply? That's literally what was happening. They thought that they was going to breed us out. They thought they could breed us out. And every time that they made a child with us, they realized that that child carried the DNA. So it was nothing that they could do. So even though so instead of them taking an L because they're inferior, they said, guess what? We're going to classify that child by what it looks like. So if the child looks more white or European, we're going to call it white. And if the child looks more black or African, we're going to just lump it together and call it African American. So they classified a person based off of what side of their blood they look like the most. So again, we don't die, we multiply. 1900s to 1950s, eugenics, destruction of records, and ghetto engineering. 1906, the U.S. began psychological testing of Creole and Melungeon children in southern schools, recording them as Negroes, retarded, or mixed defective. In 1910, Carnegie and Rockefeller Foundations funded the Eugenics Records Office, and Rockefeller also funded the school system. Southern mixed families are flagged for sterilization, so they were doing forced sterilization on those women. In 1924, Virginia's Racial Integrity Act makes it illegal to call yourself Indian unless you are federally recognized. Dr. Walter Plecker rewrites birth records, erasing generations of tribal identity. 1930s, urban planning begins. Black and hybrid communities are pushed into red line zones. Medical studies on diet, behavior, and stress begin in segregated hospitals. In the 1940s through 50s, Tuskegee and other military bases began chemical STD and trauma studies on inner city residents and Southern sharecroppers. This was not neglect, this was state-funded genetic mapping. So they had to pretty much break down those bloodlines as much as possible. Now, something very important I want you guys to look at on this picture. This picture is from the 1950s when there was segregation during Jim Crow. And only black people could go in one place or one part, and only white people can go in one part. Look at who's in the front of this line. Don't he look white? Well, look at all of the rest of the people behind him. Don't they look black? They were the same. They were in the same classification. That's what they don't want you to know. That's the biggest part in history that they hid. The biggest part in history that they hid from us. He was Melungeon. That's why he was in the same classification as the so-called blacks, because he had the blood of them in him. So, yeah. 1960 through 1980, psychological warfare and controlled consciousness. 1968, the Indian Civil Rights Act was not to help, but to enforce tribal people under U.S. law, erasing treaty sovereignty and locking reservation populations into dependency, because this is when they did the massive switch out on paper. 1970s, HUD experiments with food stamps, Section 8, and welfare reform in urban hybrid communities, where they told you couldn't have a man in the house if you wanted to get help from the government. So that's how they was pushing and forcing the man out of the house, especially the so-called black communities, so that they could raise the children and pacify the mother. Psychiatric drugs like Thorazine and Haldol are tested on inner city behavioral outliers. In 1980s, the crack epidemic introduced tracked and televised as a black issue, but focused in Creole, Cajun, and Melungeon cities as well. Surveillance and COINTELPRO operations deepened, and this was the age of the pharmaceutical leash. So this is when they started just putting drugs out there like crazy. Not just drugs. This is a good book here too for you guys to read. Not just drugs in a sense of street drugs, but drugs in a sense of their pharmakia, their pharmaceuticals, also known as sorcery. 1990s to today. He's also Melungeon, just to let y'all know. Bill Clinton. 1990s to today, technological enslavement and DNA suppression. 1990s, rise of Ancestry and 23andMe, collecting blood and saliva from hybrid lineages under the disguise of heritage. 2000s, FEMA zones established. Creole and Cajun towns were hit with Category 5 natural disasters while federal land grabs increased. In the 2020s, you had COVID vaccine trials which specifically targeted Black, Hispanic, and urban populations. Surveillance through phones, Wi-Fi, and wearable tech accelerates. Ongoing. As of today, we have mass testing of mental illness and school-to-prison patterns in children from Baltimore, Baton Rouge, Oakland, and Jackson, all heavy with hybrid lineages. They no longer need chains because they've coded the matrix into the culture. So everything can just happen. Everything can just happen easily. I don't know if you guys ever read the Willie Lynch letter, but that letter pretty much was saying that everything that they programmed into the people, it could last for 400 years without them having to, restructure it. But they knew who we are, or who we are. They knew why they studied us and who they studied, and then they tried to wipe it, rename it, and test it, hoping that we never remember. Us and our people, our lineage, were not enslaved. We were reclassified. We're not poor. We were robbed. And we're not black or mixed. We are everything they fear and covet. Everything they wish they could be. How so-called whites and other races can know if they're Melungeon. So I'm going to help you guys to be able to point them out, both so-called white and so-called black. You'll be able to know when you see a Melungeon. So the bloodline never lies. Melungeon or Mulligan, or however you said it, as is often spelled to reflect phonetic truth, refers to a hidden ancient hybrid bloodline found mostly in Appalachia and southeastern U.S. It combines indigenous American, Moorish, North African, Mediterranean, Sephardic Jews, the real ones, Portuguese and Spanish, and early Anglo-Celtic indentured servants who pretty much they all mixed up together in so many words. If someone thinks they're white, but their family came from Eastern Kentucky or Southwest Virginia, East Tennessee, the Carolinas, or Southern Ohio, spoke in old dialects or with Elizabethan English slang, has swarthy skin, black, straight, or wavy hair, gray or green eyes, was known as triracial isolates or Black Dutch, Portuguese, dark whites, or just funny looking folk in the 1800s, then you're classified as a Melungeon. And these are some people. I think that's Dick Van Dyke. He looked like my father a little bit. My father was just a little bit more brown with curlier hair. But these are some people, Tom Hanks, Elvis Presley, that are classified as Melungeon. Clark Gable, that's his name. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for that. Some physical traits that can't be erased. Even after generations of reclassification, Melungeon features linger. Olive skin that tans deeply, straight to loosely curly black or brown, dark brown hair, high cheekbones, almond or heavy lidded eyes, hazel gray or green eyes with dark hair, a rare combo, pointed or aquiline noses, full lips or narrow faces, on narrow faces, as you can see here. Extra strong immune systems or sensitivities to vaccines and drugs. These traits don't line up with pure European ancestry. That's because they're not European. They're the echoes of a royal hybrid class that was erased from public record. They're not European. Behavioral traits and spiritual or spirit clues. This is Dolly Parton when she was younger. She's from Tennessee. This is Bill Clinton when he was younger. You can tell a lot when they're younger because they're not like, it seems like they just was being their self. They wasn't trying to fit in with that white box or that black box, depending on, which one they choose. But most Melungeons will go into the white classification if they do decide to, go, or Latino or something like that. But Melungeon descendants often feel out of place in white spaces, but don't fit in with Black, Latino, Middle Eastern box either. Have deep ancestral dreams they can't explain. Oh, I forgot to add a very famous one that everybody likes is Marilyn Monroe. She's also Melungeon. If you look into her before she got famous, she changed her name and she changed the way she looked. She actually did not have that blonde hair and stuff. But they have deep ancestral dreams they can't explain, are drawn to old world music, spiritual mysticism, herbal medicine, or ancient crafts, feel naturally resistant to authority, religious dogma, or whitewashed patriotism. Since they are something ancient but can't prove it with mainstream ancestry kits. And that's the soul remembering what the paper erased. Where their ancestors came from. These are not Europeans who became mixed. These were already mixed ancient peoples who were here or brought over as Moors, Jews, or nobles, not as slaves. Their ancestors came on ships as navigators, indentured Moors or Sephardic Jews fleeing the Inquisition. They were a part of early Portuguese Spanish colonies before the British takeover. They escaped colonial plantations and merged with tribal matriarchal systems and were labeled free persons of color in early census, then stripped of tribal and noble titles after 1830s. So these are the African Moors and these are the Sephardic Jews. That's what started those Melungeons. They are their ancestors there. How the paper trail disappears. These are more of them. Most Melungeon families were marked white in one generation, mulatto in another, or free Negro in another. They're caught in Placker's 1924 reclassification crusade in Virginia, where he destroyed Indian Melungeon records, pushed into Appalachia, where they hid under labels like Black, Dutch, or Portuguese to avoid being segregated. So-called whites today who descend from these bloodlines may be genetically indigenous in the Moorish and don't know it, hold land and inheritance rights that were stolen, and carry spiritual keys and ancient skills that have been lying dormant. So, again, It's not about the skin color, because as the original people, we can birth the whole entire nation. We can make every shade possible except white. And these people, if you look at them, aren't white. Their skin is not white. If you have ancestors from Appalachia, Southern Louisiana, or Carolina backwoods, look ethnically ambiguous or mixed despite a white family label, have strong intuition, dreams, ancestral callings, and resistance to lies, you may not be white at all. You may be a hidden Melungian, a bridge between worlds that with forgotten rights, gifts, and responsibilities. So again, it's not about the color. I need y'all to forget about color. Forget about color, because that's how they got you. Let's talk about who the real Sephardic Jews are. So, Sephardic versus false ones as an Ashkenazi. To this day, you can look up pictures of the real ones. Also, blonde hair, blue eyed, that is a giveaway of like, that's why they made it be the beauty standard, because blonde hair and blue eyes is a part of their creation, if that makes sense. So that's why they made it the beauty standard. The real Jews, the Sephardic bloodline. Sephardic comes from the word Sepharad, which in ancient writings referred to Iberia, modern-day Spain and Portugal, or Louisiana is where it really is, Iberia. Okay, but don't let the geography fool you. The Sephardic Jews are not European. They are Moorish, Hebrew, indigenous to North America, aka Africa, Canaan, and even Americas. Their bloodlines trace back to Solomon and David, the house of Shem, Hebrew-speaking peoples of Afro-Asiatic origin. They practiced Torah law mixed with mysticism, the Kabbalah, sacred geometry, astronomy, herbal healing, and temple sciences, and were rooted in matriarchal priesthood traditions. They were cast out of Jerusalem by Rome, spread into North Africa. Remember, all of this happened here on this soil. So the names were just changed. We talked about that in the first history session that we had when we talked about how the maps were changed. But they later found themselves in Mali, Ghana, Timbuktu, trading centers of wisdom, Morocco, Mauritania, and Egypt. And many sailed west long before Columbus, guided by the stars, bringing back ancient language, instruments, and rites into the Americas. These are the true Hebrews, not by religion, but by blood and function. The false Jews, Ashkenazi Khazarian bloodline. Now we enter the deception. Ashkenazi is not a biblical tribe. It refers to Turkic Khazarian Empire that converted to Judaism around the 8th century AD. Their leaders chose Judaism as a political cover to avoid domination by Christians or Muslims. These people are Eurasian, not Semitic, spoke Yiddish, which is a mix of Hebrew, Germanic, and Slavic, not Hebrew. Were largely from Ukraine, Poland, Russia, and the Caucasus Mountains, migrated into Europe, then into global finance and media empires over time. After World War II, the Holocaust narrative allowed them to claim victimhood and moral superiority, usurp the term Jew entirely, and relocate en masse to Palestine and illegally form Israel in 1948. So that is what they're fighting over today. They're fighting over how they invaded those lands and took over their lands to this day, because they are frauds. Then they erased Sephardic, Ethiopian, and Indigenous Hebrews from history, claimed the inheritance, rituals, and legal codes of a people they are not, and have enforced a global Zionist identity theft operation ever since. They are not the original people of the book. They are not the scribes and money changers Christ warned. I mean, they are the scribes and money changers that Christ in the Bible warned about. So they're the fake ones. So where did they come from, really? Sephardic Jews, which are the real ones, are from Canaan, the Levant, Northern Africa, and ancient America. And in short, they're from ancient America because all of those civilizations were here. Spiritual lineage, the house of Shem, the tribe of Judah, the priests of the Most High. DNA markers is E1B1A, the Shemitic so-called African, which we know is American. L1, L3, matrilineal DNA, indigenous American mitochondrial line. So We are the Sephardic Jews. We are the scattered tribes of Israel. The Ashkenazi false Jews are from Khazaria, which is modern day Ukraine, Russia border, right here. They're from up around here. And I would say they from Kiev, or however you say it, because if you look into this part of Ukraine, a lot of pharmaceutical stuff happens that is manufactured here that is sent to the Americas. Spiritual lineages is the sons of Japhet, which is mixed with Edom and Magog. So in the Bible, you have the three sons of Noah. One is Ham, one is Shem, one is Japheth. Japheth is the one of the white yellow nations. So the Asians, the Russians, the Polish, Romanians, Serbians, like all of them are from the Japheth line. All the Asians, not all of them, but like China, Japan, not the like South Asian places, like Thailand and stuff like that, not those places. But DNA markers R1A, J2, and other Euro Asian lines are unrelated to original Hebrews are what they're connected to. So that's letting you know that their blood is not even tied into the blood of the original Hebrews. The legal and spiritual hijack. Here's how they flipped the script. First, they got a stolen identity and they claim to be the original Hebrews while spiritually and genetically unrelated. They're not related in no way. They monetized the covenant. They took ancient laws and repurposed them into commercial code, leading to maritime law, birth certificate bonds, and Talmudic contracts. They created the nation of Israel in 1948, and that's a Rothschild finance program to anchor a fake homeland and control prophecy narratives. They created a legal matrix through the Bar Association, the IMF, World Bank, and Vatican banking system. They run global commerce, own legal systems via Crown Temple Bar, and enforce commercial slavery through UCC and commercial jurisdictions. The matrix isn't just digital, it's legal, spiritual, and inherited through ignorance. Why this matters. So-called Black Americans, especially in the South and East Coast, carry the blood of the original Hebrews, the real Jews. You were reclassified, renamed, spiritually suppressed, and intentionally confused with Africans and slaves to block your inheritance. Meanwhile, the Ashkenazi class sits atop global finance, uses Zionism as a shield for dominance, and has programmed the world to believe they are the chosen ones. But the real ones don't run banks, they open portals. The root of colonialization, enslavement, and legal bondage lies in the theft of the Hebrew identity, the inversion of the covenant, and the installation of imposters into spiritual authority over the world. They didn't just steal our land, they stole our story, then they sold it back to us with interest, with them playing our role. What was Tartaria? Tartaria was not a myth. It was a massive, ancient, advanced global civilization with free energy architecture, sacred geometric cities, knowledge of the ether, etheric, tech, sound, magnetism, unified language through cymatics and symbols, worldwide commerce without colonial banking. It spanned Siberia and Central Asia, parts of North America, especially the Midwest and Pacific Northwest, and the Moorish-built cities of Old Europe and the Americas. This empire wasn't about conquest, it was about energetic alignment, and it operated with harmonic frequencies, ley lines, and cosmic timekeeping. What happened to it? The fall was engineered, it wasn't natural, and I'm about to tell you guys how. The mud floods buried entire cities. These weren't just floods, they were weapons. Think a scalar weaponry, like where they take frequency systems to make stuff happen. They geoengineered tsunamis and they had global liquefaction of soil. So it made a lot of mud, basically. The World Fairs from 1851 to 1915 were the post-reset cover-ups, and they were used as expositions to showcase stolen architecture, reprogram the public into believing it was just built, and burn it down afterward, claiming it was temporary. Old souls removed and children installed. And we're about to go in. So those old souls was people that could remember they were taken out, and they created a new class of people. This is where the wheats and the tares from the Bible thing comes in, because they say that you're going to look alike, meaning you're going to have the same type of vessel, but you're not going to be the same. And you're not going to be able to tell until you grow up, basically. But the orphan train and cabbage patch reality. Let's talk about this because this is really deep. It's a rabbit hole y'all can go down into forever. But between 1850 and 1929, tens of thousands of children were put on trains across North America and Europe. They were incubated in hospitals or wards, not born to parents. They were given no real identity, assigned numbers, religions, and names. They were sent across the country to be adopted, experimented on, or used to repopulate the new world. Why only children? Because the adults of Tartaria were wiped out. The elites needed to populate cities with programmable humans, and children's minds could be reformatted without rebellion. They created the Cabbage Patch myth to mock it. Babies grown in cabbage leaves, a cute lie hiding a dark truth. So that story about the stork delivering the baby, well, let's just say that's what was happening. With the stork would be the mailman. Also, they have this picture here with babies cracking out of eggs. These children were created. The created class, genetically engineered humans. They didn't stop at children. They needed an entirely new breed of people, compliant, spiritually disconnected, servants, workers, soldiers. These beings were genetically spliced from various races, including Indigenous, Moorish, Mongol, Anglo, birthed in labs, wards, or remote facilities, given fake lineages, last names, and religious indoctrination, installed with soul detachment or block DNA. Their purpose is to serve the colonizer class, replace true Tartarians, Moors, and tribal bloodlines, and obey systems like church, school, work, military without questioning. So, while you're out in public, you're out in the world, you will start to see that there's more of them than it is of us. I actually encountered one, the day before yesterday? Or was it yesterday? I think it was the day before yesterday. And let's just say you can tell when you're surrounded by a GMO human. They are weird, first of all, and their eyes are not normal. Executive Order 6102, HJR 192, 1933, the final spell. By 1933, after this reset, the organic people were bankrupt, reclassified as legal entities through the straw man. Gold was seized to back new birth bond systems, and the created class was now fully functional in cities, churches, and factories. Because they were the beginning of the birth certificate bond system. They used their created class to kind of like fuel it by giving more numbers. Because the people who were poor during 1929 and all of that kind of stuff, some of them were desperate. Then you had others that weren't not trying to buy this new system. It wasn't with it. So that their created class could now help these things be pushed quicker because people was thinking. People had a brain back then. This was the legal tethering of the engineered human to the matrix. Your birth certificate equals bond and your blood equals property. This is the executive order. It says, under executive order of the president, issued April 5th, 1933, all persons are required to deliver on or before May 1st, 1933, all gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates now owned by them to a Federal Reserve Bank branch or agency or to any member bank of Federal Reserve System. I don't think the regular people was buying that. Bonus. You got these 3 movies here. You have The Wizard of Oz that came out August 25th, 1939. You have Alice in Wonderland that came out July 26th, 1951. And you have Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which came out June 30th, 1971. Let's see how this all connects. The Wizard of Oz, 1933. Allegory of the birth certificate and straw man system. Dorothy will be you, the natural living being. The yellow brick road equals the gold standard of the redemption path. Emerald City equals DC, the United States Corporation. The wizard equals the illusion of government, power. The ruby slippers equals the inherited power, trust, lawful standing. The tornado equals birth trauma, legal transition from land to sea. The hidden truth. Dorothy is deceived into believing she must go outside of herself for help. The whole time she had the power, the slipper's trusted state to go home, but no one told her the truth. The journey was the programming, and the wizard was the corporate fiction. So they're telling you in this movie, that's how they gained your consent. That's how they do it. Alice in Wonderland in 1951. Allegory of legal name fraud, court systems, and jurisdiction. Alice equals the minor, the ward of state. The rabbit is time, the deadline-based legal process. The Queen of Hearts is the maritime court, unjust and arbitrary. The Cheshire Cat equals spiritual awareness guiding her through madness. The Tea Party is senseless distractions of public education or media. The hidden truth is that Alice is dragged into a world where nothing is logical. Everything is reversed and authority is insane. This reflects the statutory legal system where meanings are inverted, lawful standing is ignored, and the true identity of the soul is lost in paperwork. Again, another era, another generation being programmed. So they are generationally programmed in 1939. This is after the gold standard, after the HJR 192, after the birth certificate shit that they brought out in the straw man shit. They come out with this movie so that they can say, hey, this is what's going on, and y'all going to be okay with it because you're going to be entertained by this movie and you're never going to question, but you're signing a unconscious spiritual contract by being entertained by this movie, which allows us to make straw mans out of y'all, or straw men out of y'all. In this era of generation right here of 1951, they're programming these ones to be okay with legal name fraud, meaning using a name that makes you a minor, a ward of the state, and putting you in and under their jurisdiction through their unjust court systems while being distracted and ignoring your spiritual awareness. So they program this generation with that. Now you have Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, this generation, 1971. The allegory of contracts, temptation, and inheritance. The golden ticket equals the trust, birthright, access. The factory is corporate America, the system of secrets. The children is social archetypes fallen by vice. Charlie is a pure-hearted heir. He's a trust beneficiary. And Wonka is a trustee who tests his moral fitness. The hidden truth is that the factory is a trap of debt, greed, gluttony, and ego, and only Charlie, who remains honest, obedient, and pure, inherits the entire estate. This is a metaphor for the original people who remain loyal to the universal law and over corporate contracts. So you win in the end when you remain loyal to who you are, to the truth. Okay, all of the ones who did the opposite didn't do it. So in this generation, they kind of programmed a little bit of freedom into their thought process, because this is opening their eyes a little bit, because that's a universal law. They have to give you a little bit. So they spoon-fed the truth, and they gave you small doses. But one small drop of poison makes everything poison. So it doesn't matter if they gave you a little bit of truth, they still gave you more poison than truth. So how to know if you're from the created class? Okay, this is how you know if you're a clone. First of all, let me say this to you. Jerry Seinfeld, y'all can look this up. He admitted that both his mother and father, who let's just say that Jerry Seinfeld is of the Jewish descent. But both his parents are orphans and were orphans on the orphan train. So yeah. So this is how you know if you're created. Physically, you have the inability to tan. You have very pale skin despite being in the sun. Your skin don't do nothing. The sun hits your skin and it stays pale. You have long limbs, narrow faces, and thin lips, which is lacking ancestral grounding because you have been created from a whole lot of things. You haven't been created from the infinite source. So your body is off. Eye shape lacks fire or depth. Something sometimes appears glassy or disconnected. And this is what I was telling you, how you guys will be able to see those created class in public, and you're going to see that we're outnumbered. It's more of them than it is of us. That's how this system can keep running, because it's more of them. You have allergies to natural elements like pollen, sun, or soil. Like, it's some people that's allergic to the sun. Yeah. Highly medicated from birth. You needed shots, treatments, or surgeries. Since you came into this world, your vessel has been faulty. That's a dead giveaway. Spiritually, no intuitive gifts or deep ancestral memory. Feel spiritually numb, disconnected from land or nature. Overly dependent on science, reason, and authority. Spiritually plastic, mimics religion but lacks energetic presence. Some are NPCs, which are non-souled, and others have blocked soul contracts. But many can awaken, but not without suffering and shock. So when they do find out the truth, they go through a like a real big shock. Like it ruins their world. They are so angry. They go through the 5 stages of grief where like they have different emotions where they might be excited, and then all in all it'll get them down to the point where it's like, well, what can we do about it? It's nothing we can do about it type of energy. Here's a movie here called The Island you guys should check out if you haven't. But in this movie, two clones find out that they are clones and break free from the system. So clones can wake up. Clones can, just like on They Clone Tyrone, clones can find out that they are clones and fight against the system. Clones do have the ability to say, this ain't right. So keep that in mind. They just have to be ready to go through what it takes. You watch this movie and you'll see what they had to go through to break free. It was a lot. It was a lot. And I'm gonna do this last segment, and then we're gonna call it quits tonight. Because I don't want to hold you guys too much longer. We've been in here for some time. It's 8 o'clock on my time. I know it's pretty late on Eastern. But how Europe was populated. The European Union. Let's talk about how Europe was populated. Because if you look at some of the older maps, and you can find them online, it's some old maps of Europe, Africa, and America. I seen a video today showing them. And America was vast and always has been, and had so much ancient technology. Africa was tribal, very little going on there as it is today. And Europe was pretty much nothing there. And it showed the color of the people in those nations, and it showed on the map our color people in America. It showed in Africa their color people, and in Europe it showed white people, or so-called white people, pale skinned people from the Caucasus. But the map was very descriptive, and I see why those nations decided to come up against us, because they didn't have anything going. That's why to this day they still running over here. All right. I even heard videos from people from Europe who say that Europe is so small. America is huge. You can travel from one state to another and be in a whole different climate. Like they say how much better America is in their countries. Plus you gotta think about South America as well, which a lot of people don't talk about, but South America is also nice. Post-reset, Europe, 1800s to 1900s, needed to populate cities that weren't theirs, fill roles in churches, courts, colonies, and create a new whitewashed class of nobles and working poor. They did this by importing orphans and training them as citizens, giving poor Eastern European migrants fake surnames and histories, raising children in Catholic orphanages to program loyalty to Rome, and placing these programmed humans into roles of dominance over Moors and Indigenous globally. This is why today Europe claims to be old and civilized, but most of its cities are built on Tartarian ruins. The average European knows nothing of who built their cities, and colonial powers rebranded themselves using stolen bloodlines, symbols, and names. This isn't just about race, it's about bloodline, memory versus programmed flesh. The reset wasn't just a war, it was a spiritual genocide, a biogenetic takeover, a cosmic interruption of Earth's natural people. You're either a descendant of the original builders, a lab-grown citizen, or a hybrid with a chance to reclaim your original coding. That's it, and that's all. This lady here cloned a real human. I forget her name. She's a scientist. She's a weird looking person, but she was able to clone a human, and it's been publicized. Y'all can look her up. You are the timeline. You are the empire. You aren't confused. You're multi-encoded. When you say I'm a Hebrew Israelite, I'm Kemetic, I'm a Moor, I'm an Indian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a child of God, you're not wrong. You're remembering. Why? Because your bloodline ruled every single one of those epochs. Your ancestors built Kemet. They walked with prophets, fought Rome, navigated the stars, crossed oceans before Europe had sails, and birthed empires that had no names until colonizers needed maps. You are the book, and they cut it into chapters and gave each chapter to a different race. Global cosplay. All right, I'm gonna go into this. This is where we're gonna start back in next week. We'll be going deep into the global cosplay and how the world is wearing our face. The world has been divided into identities worn like costumes, and each one is rooted in our origin. So take a look at how, and these are Africans here, but take a look at how influential we are. A lot of the stuff that people do and wear is it comes from here. It comes from the source. Even like the teeth and stuff. Like that's something that we've been doing. Even the tattooing. That's something that we've been doing. But I'm not gonna hold you guys any longer. I do appreciate you guys being here, and I hope to see you guys next Saturday when we move on. I'll be posting this on YouTube, but the part where I'm going to be going in about COVID and stuff, I probably won't post on YouTube because I know they're not going to want me having that on there. You know how they are. So again, I'm not talking to you guys here when I say this, but anybody who's watching this video on YouTube and you want to get the inside scoop about what I'm talking about that they won't allow me to put on YouTube, you might want to join the community so you can get that inside. You can click the link in the description bar. But I appreciate you guys again for being here with me for another long class. So it's probably going to be 2 classes that I post on YouTube, but everything's going to add up. And by the time that we're done this 4-week situation, you'll be walking around in the world with a whole new set of eyes. You'll be able to see things differently, and you'll also be able to move more sovereignly because you have an identity that you can connect with, not something that was given to you like this African thing, or this white thing if you've been classified as white, but you're not really white by the blood, if that makes sense. But they've been playing games with us. They didn't had us under some serious spells, and we only just got through the minimal stuff. We haven't even gotten into the stuff that's really gonna blow y'all mind yet. So I want to let this stuff digest into your nervous systems and not overload y'all with too much. But let me know how y'all like this class. You can unmute yourself and just tell me briefly, and then I'm gonna let everybody go.
Loved it. Definitely
Love it.
appreciate you as
Yeah, I
always.
love it.
Exceptional.
Amazing.
You're
Love
Very
it.
awesome.
informative. I love it.
Excited for next week.
Excellent stuff.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Excellent stuff.
Yes, I hear that.
Great stuff.
When you say
We'll be at
mind
the
blowing,
next one.
you got my attention.
Well, I appreciate that. I work real hard to try to make it make sense. So I just want to know like if it really ties in, because to me sometimes I be going overboard, but I feel like it's
No,
all
yes,
just lining
you
up.
did Ooh,
it deeply resonates. I'm
fantastic.
so glad to be part of a group that is really seeking the truth. And I love you, Divine. I know we don't know each other that well,
Aw,
but you know what I mean.
likewise,
Yeah, me
I do.
too.
I appreciate it. And my love extends to all of you as well. That's why I'm doing this, because we got to break through all of this division that's been causing us to fight amongst each other when the whole time we've been family. I know, like, when I was little, I used to hear this thing like, we're all related in the eyes of God. And I never understood that. I was
Mhm.
like, we just brothers and sisters or whatever. But, like, when I look into the history of America and how America has been this place of life, a place of abundance, and it's been like this. It's not something that just happened. It's just like what I'm realizing is that energy never dies. It just transforms and
Yes,
transfers.
yes.
So the energy of this place is the same. It's just we got some energy over here that's causing it to be disrupted.
Right.
Yeah.
So we gonna get back on that original
no.
balance
Yeah.
where everybody's playing their role and not trying to be something that they're not, being proud of who they are, and like I said, loving each other for their differences, because that's what's gonna make us be able to crush this system as a whole.
I agree
Yeah,
100%.
I agree as well. We're all brainwashed. That's one of the things. When
Massively.
we don't even know who we
Mm,
are.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
And that's the saddest part about it, because we got some strong people in America. Like, I think we one of the most unstoppable countries. That's why we haven't been stopped yet, and it's mostly because of our power that we given, and they just taking it and creating their own agendas against us. And it's so stupid to me, because it's like, how are you going to use the people who you need to destroy your own self? The logic of it.
That's a good
That's
point.
why we're the most propagandized too.
Right.
If you look at it.
Mm-hmm. We the most poisoned. You know, when people say they travel to other countries, the food tastes much less chemicalized and stuff.
Oh yeah, you could go to like Italy. I've heard people lose weight when they eat bread and pasta in Italy, but if you try to do that here, you'll be 300 pounds within 6 months.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's true.
So we waking up as a collective, and I'm glad to hear that y'all like it, and we're gonna keep it going. So we got 2 weeks left. That's probably gonna be like another 8 hours of class. So I appreciate y'all. I wish y'all nothing but the best.
Stick
Go
with
ahead.
you. We love you.
Well,
Appreciate
much love
it.
to you guys as well.
For
I
sure.
appreciate that.
You have a
Much
blessed
love,
night.
peace, and blessings to
Divine.
everyone.
Yes, likewise. So you guys enjoy the rest of your night. I ain't gonna hold y'all no longer. I'll see y'all next week, and this will be on YouTube probably tomorrow.
Cool.
Peace and love, tribe.
Fantastic. Appreciate
And Divine.
Thank you.
And Divine,
Yeah.
that word that Indian word you've been struggling with is called Catawba.
Catawba.
Yes, because it's Catawba. We have counties named Catawba County here in North Carolina.
Okay, see?
Yeah.
Catawba, okay. All right.
All right.
I
Well, thank
love
you for that.
You're welcome.
Love you, Divine. Thank you.
All right, love you all. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night, everyone.